wedding in South London. The bride grew up near here, but as a third-generation Ghanaian, she's having a traditional African ceremony. One that comes at a price, literally.
I wouldn't say that I grew up thinking, I'm gonna have my traditional, and I'm gonna have my white wedding. No.
Recently, I've seen more and more of my friends who are of African descent expressing their identities through traditional weddings. But there's a tension. Some say it's wrong that the bride is being bought.
That makes me feel so uncomfortable, even when I think about the whole institution of marriage and it being like a thing of like, again, given away, like from this owner to this owner, and then to add a money transaction into it feels even more like...
Whilst others feel something that should be symbolic, it's being used as a scam.
Some people are paying almost £10,000, £15,000.
So how do you differentiate between tradition and a money-making opportunity?
My name's Jeffrey.
And I'm Angela.
And we're getting married very soon.
When I was young, being really honest, I didn't really know what a traditional wedding was. It wasn't really in my psyche at that time. The thing about being an African in Britain is there's this saying, you know, you can take the girl out of the village, but you can't take the village out of the girl. And so, yes, obviously, I was born here, raised here, but a lot of my upbringing was rooted in the Ghanaian culture.
Jeffrey has hired a professional gift wrapper for the presents that will be given to Angela's family on their big day.
I knew of a door knocking ceremony, and we had that effectively by my parents and one of my aunts. We brought some gifts. So I even thought to myself, boom, like, that's done. Like, we might not even have to do the traditional. I was like, we might be able to get away with that. And I found out that was just the prelude to the traditional.
Well, I don't view the bride price as me being paid for at all. I like the idea that so much thought from Jeffrey's side has gone into making sure that they are thinking about me as a treasure coming into their family. But yeah, Jeffrey can't afford me. He just can't. I think it would have been really difficult for my parents to give me away in marriage without having this cultural aspect.
At the risk of stating the obvious, bride price, or bride wealth, is when the groom's family pays the bride's family as part of a marriage. Sometimes it goes by a different name. In South Africa, it's known as lobola. In the part of Zimbabwe where I'm from, we call it rora. But whatever it's known as, bride price is a common practice across sub-Saharan Africa, as well as a number of other countries, including Thailand, China, and Papua New Guinea. It's the other way around to a dowry, where the bride's family pays the groom's family and is most common in South Asia. A bride price can be made up of money, presents, or a mixture of both. The groom will often pay everything in one sum, but it's not uncommon for the bride price to be paid in installments. The value paid varies wildly, from a small amount considered a more symbolic gesture to tens of thousands of pounds.
We've got, oh,
I heard something. 1 second.
Bro, that is looking snug.
No, we got it. Just about. The traps were just poking out, you know what I mean?
It's a week before the wedding, and Geoff is trying on his traditional outfit.
So this is actually, I believe, like a Nigerian attire. When Ghanaian men have like a big occasion, like a wedding, there's this kind of wraparound they do where it's one over the shoulder, and they kind of, it's very kind of like statesmanly. That was my original plan. In the end, this was just kind of easier to pull together. And to be honest, I think it still will allow me to kind of have that kind of entrance that, that I want. So this alongside the groomsmen should be a good look, and obviously alongside my bride. So
he's getting married, the boy's getting married. You're looking sick, bro. Looks wicked, man.
He's gathered his groomsmen to finalise any last-minute preparations
In the garden, come.
and rehearse his all-important entrance dance routine.
the reason why we've taken this, full on really is, I think primarily just out of respect for our family. So family is just a big part of our Ghanaian culture.
It does look really good on. They look banging on. I can see it.
Yeah, that looks fresh. I guess, and with the gifts as well, I'm telling you, we're gonna.
And the gifts are in gold and white as well.
Yeah. With the groomsmen are in formation, which is nice to see. We're just going to do a bit of run through now in terms of how it's going to look on the day, because just to kind of take the pressure off Saturday, it'll be nice obviously if we know what we're doing.
Why am I at the front? Can I not be in the front?
Yo, I like that.
It wasn't the first thing on my mind when I proposed, but the more I've gotten into it, the more I've learnt myself about my culture. And I think on Saturday, when we are kind of being married in the Ghanaian sense, with that Ghanaian family around us, in the tradition of kind of Ghanaian customs, I think probably more than any other point in my life, I'm going to feel, as a British-born Ghanaian, the fullness of my heritage. Yeah, that feels so awkward. Scrap that. Scrap that.
On the other side of London, Angela is bringing her bridesmaids together to go over their duties on her big day.
So in terms of the day,
we are going to be going through the order of the day, responsibilities, and also we're going to be looking at how we're going to tie our head wrap for my entrance, and finally practicing a few dance moves. I'm going to talk about service for Jeffrey's immediate family first. So for Jeffrey's immediate family, we will have pre-prepped trays of the Evian water.
Yeah.
That is better quality. No, but the whole point is we need to give them the best possible hospitality and welcome. So my sister, who's my maid of honor, and my coordinator, who's also Ghanaian, they will be going through how to serve in a respectful way, and things to do and things not to do.
Yeah.
And another thing that I will say to you, right hand, please have that in your memory. Right hand, left hand is very, very rude. We are hosting it, so Jeffrey's family is coming into our world as a family, and so there's lots behind the scenes. Kneel down quietly, and then with your right hand, take and give. Yeah. So I always knew that having a traditional wedding was important, not just culturally, but even spiritually, because, we're born again Christians.
The presence of God on that day. I pray for Angela, I pray for Jeffrey.
One of her friends is leading a prayer.
The food is sanctified, the room is sanctified, oh God. Everything that shall be used on that day, the ring, the fan, the head wrap, the clothes, everything is sanctified in the blood of Jesus, Father God. And
they're praying for the wedding and to bless the marriage.
Lord, have your way on Saturday. In Jesus' name I pray.
Amen. Amen. Obviously, I'm British, but I'm very much Ghanaian, and I understand that culture really well. So this is how I'd like y'all to tie it. Twist it, but we're going to loosen it up. I don't want it too tight. How does it feel, Steve?
very secure.
Africans are proud of being Africans. There was a time where it wasn't necessarily the coolest thing to be African. Now you see this great embrace of the African culture, regardless of where in Africa. And I think it's beautiful.
The last task of the day is rehearsing one of the most important parts of the ceremony, Angela's entrance.
If there were significant problems because of an element of the bride price, that would be awful. In fact, I would, just in myself, I know I wouldn't really want to be a part of it.
It's not clear exactly when bride price became common in Africa, but we do know that in many countries, it predates cash.
Slow it down!
Historically, the price paid by the groom's family to the bride's family has varied by country and culture. In Ghana, it would have been common to give items such as ornaments and clothes. In some countries, it was livestock.
Only 10 head of cattle for this beautiful girl? 10 fine, fat cattle for marrying into such an important family?
This is a South African wedding in the 1950s.
Over the past 3 generations, the practice of bride price has really changed.
The groom looks serious, and he has a good reason. For in a moment, the bride's father will make it public that he has sold his daughter for 10 head of cattle. 3 are still owing, and he can sue his son-in-law if he doesn't pay up.
So traditionally, it really was a token of appreciation to the parents of the bride.
The big men are bargaining over the bride.
But in many cultures over time, the focus has increasingly become cash.
Look at today, what the gifts look like. They are monetary, and that is where the word price comes from. It is no longer a bridal gift, it became a bride price.
She's worth more than your offering, say the bride's men. She's worth another 2 pigs at least. Nonsense, say the groom's side. She's no longer a virgin and she's been divorced once already.
I think they need to remove the whole idea of equating money to love, to how much you love the daughter. I don't think it works like that. I think, you know, if I've heard about guys going to kill themselves for bride price and then suffering later. Do you know what I'm saying? I've heard of them going to, you know, work crazy shifts or do unimaginable things just to come and pay the bride price, and then you go back to the guy's house and he doesn't have any money.
The price could go from the equivalent of £200 to £30,000. A token, the appreciation of a girl is all right. However, when we start talking about bride price, I think we are going to, you know, we are crossing the boundaries of human rights.
With the wedding just days away, Geoff's given his groomsmen an idea of what to expect on the day.
Yeah, we'll just talk through Saturday quickly and your responsibilities. So it's going to be fun, but it's also going to be work. So let me just grab a seat. So maybe it'll help if I just kind of run through how it happens. Angela's family's going to have a spokesperson, and now they may be getting you to do some drills, so be ready for that.
Apart from the dollars, have some money, because they might be like, oh, so you lot practice, you lot prepared yourself. We only accept pounds in our family.
For a lot of us, it will probably be the first time, but any kind of like hesitation or fear, they'll be able to smell it a mile off. So whatever you do, do it like, no matter how, just kind of, if we go in there like a squad, like knowing that this is where we belong, it's gonna be sick. I'd say when we got the list, there was nothing on there that surprising. We were very clear on, you know, if we can't afford it, then, you know, we're not going to do it. Don't ask you why, but suitcases are like first thing on the list of a Ghanaian gift list. So these big boxes here are kind of suitcases. We then have a lot of kind of like Ghanaian wax print, so that's cloth that you'll see a lot of ladies wear for different events. We've got several pieces of cloth that are kind of very prestige and nice and classy. We've got, you know, lots of drinks, both, you know, non-alcoholic and also kind of a few special alcoholic drinks that kind of come with it as well. Obviously the bride price is the thing you look for, because that is, you know, the bride price, but yeah, it was fairly modest. It was in the hundreds. I've heard it can often be a lot more than that, where people are having to kind of go and really dig deep. For ours, it was, yeah, you know, there was a cost, but it was very reasonable, and you know, we came together as a family, and we managed to kind of, you know, purchase all the things and even add a few things as well. I think something both Angela and I were, you know, very united about was not wanting to burden ourselves to such an extent that we're paying for it months and months, you know, into the marriage. And you know, we've even spoken about, you know, finances on the other side, and we're confident that, you know, it will all work out. But yeah, it's definitely put a squeeze on things.
For Geoff and Angela, the traditional wedding was their choice, but that's not always the case. And for Blessing and Chelsea, the decision was out of their hands.
I was kind of like really against the whole traditional marriage thing. First, because my dad passed away in 2010 when I was like 19. And I was like, okay, so even for it to be traditionally married, like who's going to take the money? Because it's mainly supposed to be about your dad and your mum. And it just didn't feel right for me. It's kind of like, we could use that money for something else. It was a battle, and he had to convince me. I'm like, there's no point. Let's just give my mum something and leave it at that. But he was like, no, we've got to do it. It's tradition.
Do it the right way.
We've got to do it the right way.
So I had to kind of like take up on a second job just to make ends meet. And that was helpful, but it was a lot of pressure because I was constantly working every day, 7 days, 24/7. In terms of money-wise, I'm not going to say how much it is, out of respect towards Chelsea's family. I'll just say roughly it's enough to put a deposit on a mortgage on a UK property, or any property, basically. I think people are taking advantage of it. Some people are paying almost next to between £10,000 to £15,000. It's getting to an extent where it's no longer a token of appreciation. People are now thinking, oh, we can actually make money off this.
Despite the large sum Blessing paid, he says he has seen some benefits after paying the bride price.
Without it, maybe our marriage won't be sustainable for the long term. Before not paying dowry, I wouldn't have been able to approach Chelsea's aunties or uncles for advice, because they'll say, oh, you haven't done the right process of bringing dowry to the family, so we cannot advise you. But now that we're a married couple, they can mediate whenever me and Chelsea have a dispute or an argument in the house. So it does put financial pressure on you, but like I said, it's a token of appreciation, and it really shows how you really care for the person that you want to spend the rest of your life, like what sacrifices you're willing to make.
Whilst Blessing and Chelsea felt conflicted about the large amount they were forced to pay, for others it's more of a moral dilemma.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you. Come in.
Amazing.
Outspoken podcaster Tolly T is a UK-born Nigerian and one of the hosts of the Receipts podcast, where she openly shares her views on social issues.
I don't know if I'm going to do it.
Really?
Yeah. Like, I know for a fact I want a traditional, I want all of that comes with it, but I don't know if I want my value to be put on a list of stuff. When you actually realise what it is, because if we place value to it, it's like if you're educated, how pretty you are, like what you look like, those are all things that are considered into your bride price. Ultimately it is, because you think about like sisters, let's say if one's more less attractive than the other or less educated, her bride price is probably less, like historically, because ultimately that's what it is. It's give me money for my child. And when I think about that being like the woman I am now, and I'm like, oh, like that makes me feel so uncomfortable. Even when I think about the whole institution of marriage and it being like a thing of like you're getting given away, like from this owner to this owner, and then to add a money transaction into it feels even more like, I don't agree with it. It's not something I would do. Yes, absolutely not something I would do.
What are some of the issues that you like?
Because ownership. That's one thing that comes with it straight away. Because if it was like, oh, it doesn't matter, bring what you can afford, fine. But it's like, if you can't bring this, my child is not marrying you. It feels very ownership-like. And again, it feels like I've left one owner, my parents, to another owner. I would rate it more if my mum made a list of how I wanted to look after my daughter. Do you know that it feels more like sweet and more like, rather than, here, give me money, but that like, make sure this is good. Please never like lack on this. Outside of the fact that you have to pay a bride price, what is it that sets the price? So if I didn't get a good result, is that because it's a running joke. Like anything great happens in my life, it's like, oh, your bride price has gone up. It's gone up, sort of thing. And I get it, because money aside, the more educated you are, the more you've got your things together as a woman, you have to date up. You're finding your equal. So I get it in that sense.
So what challenges do you think that puts on the females?
It's a self-esteem thing. It's a, oh, what, am I not worth this because I didn't go to uni? Am I not worth this because I don't work in a certain sector, or I don't earn this amount of money? And ultimately, what has that got to do with me being a wife, or being a good wife, or being a good mother, or being good in a family setting? Like, what has my degree got to do with how I'm going to be with my husband?
As a millennial, how do you think this culture can fit into this day and age, or can it?
I do think a lot of like us millennials, a lot of like Black British or like Nigerian British or whatever, we are a culture of our own now. We're kind of like taking bits that we want from being African or being Zimbabwe, being from Nigeria. We're taking bits from being British as well. So we've created this kind of weird, brilliant, I think, subculture where it's like we question things. We don't just do things because you're meant to do that culturally. We question it and we do it if it makes sense for us.
The big day for Geoff and Angela has arrived. guests are gathering outside with the gifts Geoff will be presenting to Angela's family. In keeping with traditional Ghanaian customs, they've hired 2 officiators to represent each side of the family.
If this is your power, if this is your glory, if this is your presence.
They'll oversee the running of the ceremony, including the bride price negotiations. This is the envelope that contains the bride price money, and it's been exchanged before either Geoff or Angela enter the room. The groomsmen will still be required to give money during different parts of the ceremony, starting from the moment they enter the room. Though given in small amounts, the money represents the groom's ability to take care of his future bride financially. In this case, the bride price has just been about upholding a tradition.
This is just us paying homage to culture. My mum has been super transparent with me, and from the very beginning, she's always said, you are not for sale. No one can buy you. And in fact, that bride price that is given is actually going to be gifted back to us as a couple. Now, I wouldn't say that that happens to every African couple when they are doing a traditional wedding, but for us, I have no problem with it because I know the heart behind how my parents have handled it.
And you are going to go through the military orders of Bantaman. Bride! Attention!
During the ceremony, the groomsmen are asked to perform a few drills that demonstrate their masculinity and show the groom's physical strength.
Quick march! General assassin!
Once Geoff is deemed suitable for the bride, she makes her long-awaited entrance. But Angela must do one more thing. Confirm to her father that Geoff is indeed the man she wants to marry.
So take your time, as slow as possible. Take your time. It's being recorded. Take your time. That's right. Check it out. Check it out. Check it out. Slowly, 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 and check it out. Yeah. Thank you. Are you sure? You sure about that? Yeah. Geoff, is she Angie? Huh? This is 100% my Angela. Your Angela. Angie, you look good. Geoff, I need to push your phone.
They're speaking in Twi, the local language of her Ghanaian family. The legal marriage will happen later.
I declare you Mr. and Mrs. Geisy.
But as far as tradition is concerned, Geoff and Angela are now married.
My parents didn't do their traditional wedding. My parents were both over here when they met and got married in the 80s, and most family were back in Ghana. So maybe to an extent, one reason why the above generation actually get so invested, you know, so many of my aunts and uncles are really looking forward to it. It's probably because some of their generation may have missed out actually. So in a way, they're kind of almost, in a good way, getting to relive some of that for us. Anything significantly more than, you know, a tokenistic gesture, it risks undermining the process as well, because then it actually gives meaning to the word bride price.
If you are equal in marriage, why should your boyfriend or your husband pay for you to marry him?
Does this make any financial sense?
Yeah.
Or should we put this money into our first home? Should we put this money into our businesses? Should we put this money into ourselves, sort of thing?
Hopefully people go back to, you know, a time where marriage was about loving each other and appreciating each other and uniting families more than it is about making money.
It feels really dated.
So we would like young people in the UK to actually understand the history of bride price. We would like them to acknowledge that marital gifts are great and beautiful, and that is what they should take with them, but we would like them to actually say no to bride price.
I appreciate the sentiment behind the gifts and the effort that's gone into it, but no, I don't see myself as being bought.